chemist.
Difficult.
Depends how long you've been doing it. I don't.
Well,
It's funny. He tries to explain stuff to me. I'm like, could you please? I've been married to him for 30 years. I'm like, could you please tell me about acids and bases again? Because I just can't get that straight. But it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. And he's analytical, so he's all instrumentation and you know HPLC, gas chromatography, that kind of stuff.
well, that's pretty cool. It's all beyond my smarts, I tell you what.
Again, it's so funny. I'm like, if you're so smart, why do you refuse to take out the trash? I mean, what's that about? The garbage cans are still sitting in the driveway. What's that? I don't understand.
Well, the flip side of laziness is really efficiency.
Yeah, because the wife does it. Yeah.
All right, so I am recording now. I'm getting my elbow licked. Stop it, dog. I'm recording now, so just a heads up, don't say any sensitive information, reveal your social security number, bank password, any of that stuff, and transcription is on. Just to kind of go ahead and get started, what this Q&A meeting is really about is dealing with portfolio. For many of you, you have heard in your early classes about portfolio is coming. Make sure that you are prepared. Sometimes they'll tell you what you should do, or you'll find a class where your instructor will say, you're doing a really good job here. You should pull this out and make it into a campaign so that you can be ready for portfolio when it comes around. And some of those things are explained, and some of those things are not explained or not explained well enough. And so we're having this session just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, or on the same page as much as possible. First of all, so I have a landline. Sorry about that. I hope that doesn't happen again. The important thing to just kind of get together is that the portfolio is really the capstone for this degree. You will take it at the end of your time here. It is a difficult class. It takes 30 hours a week in general for most people, and it is only offered in the spring. So if you haven't finished all of your classes when you take portfolio, there is a small opportunity for you to walk in the spring and take one or two missing courses over the summer. But it's best to take that course after all of your design learning has been completed and after you are ready to go with your best work, because it's the last piece that you do. In the portfolio class, and I'll show you a little a digital version of some of these, there is a very short timeline. Graphic Design 1 and 2 are classes that teach you some of the basics, and you'll already have all of your software classes under your belt. And when you move up into the upper tier courses like technical illustration, print production, client media relations, graphic design 3, and a few others, you will already be a good designer. And these classes will be an opportunity for you to build out some full campaigns that are really the best versions of design work that you can do. So let's talk about what a campaign is briefly. A campaign is 3 or more related design pieces. So a logo by itself is a bit of a one-hit wonder. It doesn't do anything. A logo that has branding associated with it, and so you use that branding as a way to build out a menu for a restaurant, some clothing items that go with that restaurant, and possibly an exterior sign for that restaurant. Those are 3 items which work together for an individual client, and those things would be your campaign. Your logo is part of that, but it's not the big exciting piece. So as you get later and later into our program, you'll find that your instructors will tell you more and more often that you should expand this project out to include a few more pieces. And that expansion is what is going to show up inside your portfolio. In your early classes, you are told that you need to save all of your sketches. You need to save all of your designs. Don't get rid of them. You may want to show them in your portfolio. And some students throw them away. And we tell you at the end of every project, you'll get some feedback from other students. You'll get some feedback from your professor. If you have some spare time, go back into your final piece and make those changes. You're taught in your Illustrator class and in your InDesign classes, as well as in Graphic Design 2 and 3, to collect your projects when you're done. So you have all of your pictures, you have all of your fonts, you have all of your files and PDFs. Because when it comes time for your portfolio, it could conceivably be a year or a year and a half later. And if you have lost your files, you will have nothing to work with. So backing up your materials to cloud storage is good. Backing it up into multiple places is good. Some students delete their projects after they're done, and that's bad. You will definitely not get those projects back if they're deleted. So try to do your best to have more than one way of backing up your project. I'm going to show you a little bit about how the portfolio class goes, and then I'll show you a few portfolios. And I'll kind of, in between those two, I'll explain the process. But the important thing to remember is that while those upper tier classes I talked about are hard, the portfolio class is harder. You don't make any new projects in your portfolio class, which means you need to come to that class with your best work already created. If you're showing up without all of your best work, you're going to have a very difficult time. And if you show up with your best work, there will still be a great deal of work to do. So it's kind of a note. Big problems that we run into in the portfolio class is someone tells us they got rid of all their work before and they have nothing. If you fail the portfolio class or you don't have enough pieces to get started, the portfolio class is only offered once a year in the spring. So if you don't have enough to get started, that means you have a mandatory 1 year wait before you can take the class again. And that's a long time to wait on your degree. So just be aware that one of the main thrusts we have within our program is that every class has projects, and every project is emphasized that it has an opportunity to go directly into your portfolio if you do a good job. But often, at least once every single year, we get someone who says, I was not told to work hard. I was just encouraged to finish the project. Or they will say, I got a C, and C means average, so I should be an average designer, and I should definitely be hired immediately because I'm on average. And that's very, very difficult to do. You need to stand out visually. And the last thing that we hear is, I lost all of my work. My hard drive failed. I washed my thumb drive too many times. I backed all my stuff up online, but I don't remember the password, so I have nothing. These are real problems, but you can imagine that if you have no work, it is difficult to show a portfolio of your best work. So do consider how you will be saving and backing up your work, even if it's you have physical printouts somewhere. Make sure that you always have a plan on how you will get back to your materials. So I'm going to share my screen now so you don't have to look at all this. Excuse me. And we'll make sure that we've got some stuff set up here. Okay, that did not work. Let's try this instead. All right, can you guys see my screen here?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. So what this is this document is a milestone of what's going to happen in our portfolio class. And if you're having a hard time reading this, that's okay. I will read it to you and kind of zoom in a little bit. Maybe we can get something a little bit nicer here. Is that okay? Hopefully it will be.
This is better.
Okay. How's that? Better still?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in this class, in the first 12 weeks of this course, you will be doing the following 4 things. You will be making a designed resume. You will be making a designed business card. You will be making a fully print-ready PDF portfolio of all of your work, and you will be creating a fully functional portfolio website with multiple pages. You will also be building out a case study that walks one project from the beginning problem and and the research that you do all the way through the works in progress and the final piece. So if you haven't kept any of your sketches on any of your projects, if you haven't kept any of your work in progress pieces where you made some changes along the way, it will be very hard to showcase that work. In the last 4 weeks of the class, weeks 13 through 16, we will focus on creating some videos of your work for online presentation, interview techniques, and getting you prepared. Once you have finished week 12 with your online website and your PDF portfolio, business people within the professional circuit of graphic design are going to be called in to look at your work. And this includes teachers, to look over your work and give you feedback piece by piece from a professional working perspective. So it's not just that you will get feedback from your teacher, but another person who's not involved with your portfolio, 2 of them actually, one of them may be a professor and one of them will be a professional from the field of design, will look through your work and give you accurate feedback. So just doing your work is not enough. Just listening to your professor is not enough. You will be given a grade based on how well you have done your work and how well you are impressing professionals in the field. And their feedback can help you to make changes and be prepared for what, if any, adjustments you need to make to your portfolio to make a strong impression to other professionals. Some of them may be impressed enough to keep your business card or contact you individually, but no promises there for that. So within the first week of your portfolio class, you will be asked by your instructor, and most likely you will be asked over the winter break prior to class to get ready for this, that you need to put together 3 folders of your work. One, which is all of your keepers. These are pieces that are full campaigns. You've gotten great grades. It's really best examples of your work, and it's things that are definitely going to be in your portfolio. You'll make a folder full of maybes. These are good pieces that could be built into a campaign, but they're not one already. Or they're an existing campaign that you have, but they need work to be a really, really good example for your portfolio. And then finally, a last folder will be made of pieces that you love. It's not a campaign. It may not even be a full project, but you love it and you would love to have it in your portfolio. Once you get all this material together, you'll meet one-on-one with your instructor or your professor to discuss, this is my work. This is the best stuff that I have right now. Which 8 pieces do you think would work best in my portfolio? If you have 8 pieces, this is great. If you have more than 8 pieces, this is really, really good because you can choose the ones that are doing the best job. However, if you don't have 8 pieces, you're really going to have a lot of work that you need to do over the course of the semester. It's not an impossible task, but it will be difficult. So in week 1, you start building a contract with your teacher. You say, I am going to do these pieces, and you tell us what they are. And that lets us know to make sure that you're not showing 4 logos by themselves or 6 t-shirts. It makes sure that you're showing a broad level of skill and ability. So then you start working on some materials that make you appear as professional as you are. You have some personal branding, you update your resume and your business card in the second week. And if you have not decided on which 8 pieces are going to work in your portfolio, or if you've said to your professor, I want to do this, and your professor tells you no, you have to get approvals on your contract. By week 3 in our course, you have to have a domain name for your personal website chosen and purchased. You'll be doing social media audits to make sure there's not something embarrassing in there. You'll be looking into who's going to host your website and trying to complete those approvals. When we get here into week 4, this sounds like a long time. This is 1 month. I'm sorry. This is 1 month into our class. When you get here to week 4, campaign number 1 and campaign number 2 have to be turned in to your professor. That means you have 2 complete campaigns, each of 3 or more design pieces at the height of your skill and ability, turned into the professor so that you can get feedback on how to fix or improve those pieces. And from week 4 on, you'll notice that every 2 weeks, 2 more full campaigns are due. This means finding a piece that you have already done well, you need in 1 week each to go through and complete and fix any adjustments or feedback that you need to do. After you turn in pieces 1 and 2, you'll get feedback from your professor. So at the same time that you are getting ready to turn in pieces 3 and 4, you are also fixing pieces 1 and 2. So you can have up to 4 pieces of graphic design trying to be fixed and adjusted. By week 5, if you still haven't decided on what pieces are going to go in your portfolio, if you don't have 8, you're going to get dropped from the course. So if over a month has gone by in a 3-month design period and you don't really know what you're going to do yet, it's probably time for you to wait a year and come back. So every couple of weeks through this course, you're going to be updating multiple design pieces. You're going to be building out your web portfolio. You're going to start your social campaign, your social media materials. You're going to start building these case studies and get reviews. Every couple of weeks, more campaign work is done. You're going to start laying out a PDF portfolio while you are working on an online website, while you are building 2 campaigns, while you are fixing the campaigns that were suggested for changes the week before. And so you can see that while this is a really tough thing to do, You've got this. You can make it work. As we get here into week 10, our 70% point, your pieces are going to be laid out in your book. Every piece will have copy that you have written that discusses what the project is, what the problem for the project was, who the client and the target market is, what you did to solve those problems. When we get here to week 10, if you're in a seated class, you're going to be sitting down with your professor and showing them a print version of your work so that you can tell that the font is not horsey and big, that everything is the right size. These will be black and white prints, but it's really an eye-opening experience for people. If you're in an online class, you might be mailing these printed versions to your professor, or you may be driving out to campus to have a one-on-one with them. As you get closer in here to week 11 and week 12, this is when people really start to worry. Prior to week 10 is the spring break. Almost all of our students have to work on their portfolio over the spring break. That's just how it is. And most of them are extremely pleased that there's extra time to do this. 3 months worth of time may seem like a lot, but it's not as much time as you think. It's over before you know it. So here in week 12, this is your drop dead date. Your print-ready PDF portfolio is due. Your website portfolio is live. Your resume and your business cards are due. And this is the week that we start handing your work over to business professionals who start giving you feedback on your work. Once this is done, there's a little bit of break time in here where we review your portfolios. But in the class, you start focusing on what are some of the ways to answer common interview questions. How can we find who's going to be a good business for us? If you don't already have a job, you're probably applying for jobs because you already have a resume, you already have a business card, you already have a website, you already have a portfolio of your work. You've already got everything that you need to succeed. In the last weeks of the class, you're going to give a video portfolio presentation. You're also going to make any changes that were requested by the business professionals that looked over your work, and you're going to resubmit your print-ready PDF with the opportunity to get your grade raised. So as you can see, there's a lot of different stuff that goes on in here, and deadlines are really, really tight. So if you are thinking during all this time you're going to build 3 or 4 new pieces that are going to be full campaigns that you've never seen before, you haven't even really thought about, building a full campaign by itself is going to be really, really tough. But fixing previous problems, fixing new issues, it starts to become a real crunch real quickly. So just as we get into that, I'd like to show a couple of examples here of some pieces that we've had in the past, if that's all right. Here is a portfolio that is built by Adrian Ackerman. It's got a nice square portfolio look and feel, and it will get translated into a lay flat book. So the opening cover of your portfolio needs to say something to to the viewer about you, who you are, and what your design sensibilities are. That's kind of difficult for some people to do. As you move through here, you'll see that there's messages, typography is taking place, the pages are laid out in a specific fashion so that you can look and see the pieces that are designed. How are they presented to the viewer? Details like the spacing between the pieces being consistent or set on good grids. tells us about the designer. Little descriptions of what kind of things you have done and how you have done them are an important part of this process. Do you have package designs? You can see that these mock-ups are all placed from individual Photoshop files together into one piece to create the illusion that physical copies of these items are made. You can see that they use the same type style and the same backgrounds and the same colors. The package shape may change, the names may change, but overall it's one idea across multiple pieces, and that's what makes this a campaign. Here, many of you have made your typography cookbooks at the end of the semester. Here is an example of one. This uses original photography and layouts to try to showcase a long document format. Consistent elements throughout, like these color blocks or these lines at the bottom, may change from page to page. Here's another long document that you'll do in Graphic Design 3, the annual report. HTML blasts or website in a week done through different courses. Here's a couple of ways in which these things can be showcased. Do you get a feeling on what the website might be like? Do you have a feeling of what the HTML blasts might be like? This is actually a WordPress website, and you can click on this QR code to view it in real time. Some package designs here. You can see that maybe they're interacting with the background in a good fashion, or maybe they need a little more work. That's okay. It's really a way of showing, can this person create more than one item with the same look and feel throughout? That's how we know it's a campaign. Building of menus. Package designs by finding mock-ups that might work, adjusting photos or mock-ups of food trucks. Exterior signage, different pieces, t-shirt mock-ups, cup mock-ups. When you look at these things, you may say to yourself, hey, that's something that I could do. Yes. Everything within these portfolios are projects that may come from one or more classes. There's no reason why you can't see something that you yourself may have done. Here's Nina Nicholson's portfolio. Nina has an about page with a nice picture of herself and a strong typographical table of contents. Some email blasts and website pieces. Get rid of this. Zoop. Make that a little bit bigger for everybody. Cookbook from typography class, Millennial Meals, redesigned slightly for a newer layout portion. Annual report from Graphic Design 3. Advertisements and web pages and packaging, social media materials. Posters for a workplace along with a mock-up of how these things might look. This is an important one to point out. You can use work for clients or work that you do for yourself. Everything is on the table in the portfolio class. So illustration work, package design, and thank yous at the end. Here's a different one by another designer, Winnie Okokol. Pantone postcards. You guys will probably have these in print production. You see in some of these pieces, like you've got a nice bit of text to describe this piece. Nice bit of text to describe this. This is another print production piece. You might find some awkward spots. Here's a piece with no description. When you've come to note and expect descriptions and lines to go with them, when you come to a page without it, it starts to feel a little awkward. You know, what is this for? How do these sunglasses with no ornamentation relate to this purse or this pen with no markings? Sometimes questions aren't exactly answered, and that leaves us to a spot where we're not as sure of what it is that we're seeing. Something like this, we see, you know, repeated looks and feels, good designs without descriptions, but we know what we're looking at. Here we see the same thing 3 times in a row. Does it show us everything that we need to see? You know, for instance, in all these text, can you see what you need? Would you like to see 3 different things, or does seeing one thing 3 times do the trick? Sometimes this is called stuffing, when you try to make something you have look bigger and more impressive. Layout, we used to do these in typography, but you may have them in your design application classes. Posters based on fonts. Right? Invitations, stuff that she does in her workplace. Again, a really nice graphic that is used throughout, good fonts, good color usage. Book cover. Again, we see the book mock-up, and we see how this might look in the Kindle library. This is 2 pieces. Does this count as a 3-part campaign? We've got some room for some more options here, so it kind of looks like it just dropped a little bit short. Nobody's perfect. As time goes on, we've got this document that you guys may see in Portfolio that just talks about different portfolio layouts. What are they like? What do you see? How can you tell that there's one idea that goes across multiple pieces so that everything looks related? And we won't have time to go through all of these items, but you can kind of see that some have a specifically graphic look and feel to them. Here's the Pantone, excuse me, here's the Pantone postcard. You can see that beyond postcards, he's gone ahead and you know, evolved this into a calendar. Everything is on the table here, so you can really take any idea that you've got and expand it during the portfolio process. So just because something was not a portfolio piece that you liked the first time around doesn't mean that it's not available again. Excuse me. So you can see across some of these that rather than show one item, you're seeing multiple pieces of design, and that allows you to decide whether this person is a good example of knowing what to do, or if they may need a little more help and assistance. Are they right for the job that you have? Can they do the things that you want to see? Exploded design from Tech Illustration. Pantone postcards. Graphic standards manuals. There's plenty of different options here, and if you were to go to the design.waketech.edu website, you can see other options of a couple of good working portfolios. But in short, as you come into the portfolio class, you're going to want to show up with the best pieces that you have. When your teacher says, hey, this is a great job, you might want to consider making 2 or 3 pieces out of this project. What if you were to expand this so that it was not just a t-shirt, but also a t-shirt and a hat? Or I see you have this menu. Do you think that you could put that menu logo and color scheme on an apron and then perhaps showcase a slight website of how to order this material online? If you do that, then you're kind of moving into portfolio campaign areas. You got a really good chance of using that in your portfolio. As you go through this process, I don't know if we showed too many that had sketches involved in those right there. But when you show your final product, some students like showing the illustrations that they used to get to their final piece. Some people like to show 5 or 6 different sketches that they did and then one really nice illustration that they finished with. So think about these processes as you move forward. If you're in a class like Design Applications 1 or Design Applications 2 or Design Applications 3, you're certainly in a spot where you can work on one project with one set of minimum requirements. But using your work in a Photoshop mockup can kind of elevate your materials to that next level up. And taking the time to say, I really like this piece. What if I changed its color and changed the words and changed the graphics? I think I could make a second version of this item that looks almost exactly the same. If you're doing a poster about fish, could you do a similar poster about sharks with just some small changes? And if you can do one about sharks and fish, what's the next piece going to look like so that you can have a full campaign of posters for education? So just as you approach your projects, think about what you need to do to hit your minimum requirements and what you need to do to make the best work that you can. But once you've determined that, also ask yourself, is there room for improvement? Can I blow this up into a second or third related piece so that I can be ready for portfolio? Classes get more difficult as you go through, but as your design skill increases, you can almost always bring just a little bit extra to the table, and any extra work you can do up front really will help you on the back end. All right, so you've all been extremely polite. I've talked for way long time. I'm going to open this up for specific questions that you might have, and I really appreciate your time today. I hope this has kind of shed a little bit of light on what you may be expecting moving forward and how to help it be an easier process. What kind of questions can I answer for you?
You actually kind of covered a lot of the questions I had.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, because I always wonder, like, with a campaign, say a book cover, for instance, we just did a book cover in the class. And so I guess I could turn that into like a movie poster. I could turn it into t-shirt. And what I wouldn't do, I wouldn't take the same stupid cover. I maybe take the ink blot, and then turn that into something and maybe change it up a little bit. So you're saying don't just keep splatting the same cover on on 100 different items. Take aspects and rearrange it to sort of expand it out to show like a variety, but along the same line, right?
Yeah, so so I have some insight into the project that you guys just did. So for instance, if you really liked one of the scary stories books that you did and you liked the ink blot, could you use another ink blot on another popular book of scary stories? Because if you could, then chances are there's probably several books of scary stories, and you could make 3 or 4 of those at any time. It's just a change of the text. It's just a change of the artwork. And if you find something that works in that combination, when set side by side, they will be different. but they will look like they are together. And so you may have seen in some of the projects the Dune book covers that Tia Mira put together. She had on mock-ups, but she had a mock-up of a bookcase that all three of them slid into. So if you want to expand further, there may be other options for you. So like your scary book could also have a Kindle edition, or it could have like an interactive Netflix show. Like you don't have to actually produce it, but just if the visual is there and it looks like it could be real, most viewers are willing to have that suspension of disbelief.
Okay, see that's it's funny because when it comes to campaigns, it gets a little weird. Like people, sometimes it's a little hard to determine what do you mean? You know what I mean? So
yeah, so I'm sorry about that.
No, but it just is a general thing, you know. It's hard because you think, okay, I've made this book, and then you figure I'll just take the book cover and slap it on 100 different things, but I know that's not correct.
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets a little boring. So, if you have a great big logo and then you show a T-shirt and the T-shirt has the logo, and then you show a bookmark and the bookmark has the logo, like you've kind of seen it already.
Yeah, right.
So seeing it somewhere different isn't that much. But let's say, for instance, one of the pieces that we looked at had a chicken and waffles sign. They could have a menu. So now you're introducing typography into the mix, and the menu has a border. The border is a color that was used in the sign. It uses the same pieces, just differently. If they have an apron, they could have an apron with the logo, and that would be pretty boring. But just by introducing, say, stripes from the color of the sign, or a bigger chicken, or something like, no clucking around, or something like that. Anything that you can do that makes it slightly new and different and exciting makes it into a discovery for the viewer, and they see that you've got more ideas than just slapping it on a card and slapping it on the side of a vehicle. And that's the kind of thing where if they hire someone who knows how to use Photoshop, they're probably going to get the same thing every time. But if they hire a designer who has a diverse and well-ranging set of skills, you're going to come up with more and different and better solutions than someone who's not trained, or someone who maybe is a 4-year graduate, but they really are more about research and not about producing. So like that's a place where we can really stand out when you look at these portfolios. And you'll get an opportunity to look at some 4-year portfolios, and I think you'll find yourself pleasantly surprised with what you'll produce of your own work.
It's very over. It's funny because when you see those portfolios, you're like, wow, that stuff is really good.
Well, you say, wow, that stuff is really good, but it's not that different than what you probably did in that class. So like if you took the menu that you created for your typography class, is that something that you could find a Photoshop mock-up for a book and put some of those layouts in the book? I bet you could. And then rather than 5 recipes, you could have a book that looks like it has 500 recipes. When they show those multiple book layouts side by side, those may be the only layouts that they ever produced. But it looks like there might be more. And that idea that they can produce more than they're showing you, that's what gives us the edge.
Yeah, that's Tamara, her Dune books. Yeah, that looked fantastic. When it was that series and had that book cover thing, it was amazing. I was like, woohoo. So.
Good job, Tamara. Take that break.
Yeah, Tamara. Yeah, it was really great. It was really great. Because it looked so, it looked like it was totally real. Like I just pulled it off the shelf at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, nicely done. And I think you're, I think the ink blots really work well for your horror book, because an ink blot can be whatever you see. And if you are already psyched up to see something scary and malevolent when you look at an ink blot, you'd be like, oh, okay, I see the face right there. Or like, there's the monster. I see it.
Mm.
There's the formless, shapeless thing in the closet with the light behind it. I see what's happening here. You know, and I think that provides you guys a really good opportunity to do whatever it is that you want there. How about you, Tiamira? Do you have any questions?
I think everything is clear. I really like the pieces, the different portfolios that you showed us.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can tell that those are very different people. You can see the style. They have very particular style. Some were more colorful, other was more like on typography. So I really like the diversity of the portfolios that you showed us. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. I think by and large, so I'm going to say this and it's going to sound weird. One of the hardest things that people find about the portfolio class is that they have to describe their work. Now, you've done it. You built it on purpose. You know why you made it. But when it comes to writing copy about it, it becomes very awkward very quickly for some people. And that's why we have that the copywriting class, GRD145. But you know, you have both already completed your typography class. And so if I asked you today, could you go and look at your menu and say, my client was this, they wanted to see this, so I provided these design skills and abilities. Like it sounds like it's very formulaic and easy to do, but I think if you sat down and started to write about it, you might find yourself in a very difficult position. Or alternately, like you might sit down and be like, oh, this is no problem at all. I could do copywriting all day long. This is something I should definitely look into. So just kind of be aware that there are some things that are more difficult than designing depending on who you are, because everybody's different. Well, if you do have any extra questions, this would be a good time to throw it out there. Otherwise, I will stop this recording, but I'm always 100% ready to answer questions about graphic design work from anybody that would like to ask them.
You know what I think would be kind of cool? Just for, you know, just as something to mention, I found it very helpful to just copy all the comments onto a Word doc and just add it to my folder of that project. And also too, I like the idea of the journal, because
What do you like about it?
I like the fact that I get to hash out sort of what I was thinking, you know, what was I thinking? And I think that would be very helpful for that final class.
Nice.
You had a copy of that and just kind of created your own little journal for each project. It's just stuff that I've been learning all along. Like, why didn't I do that then? Because then I could have written a little blurb about, you know, and it would have been fresh in my mind at the time. And then I could just go back to that instead of trying to come up with stuff during that hairy class, you know? But,
Okay. I think that sounds like a great idea. I'm happy to post a note about that in our class. That sounds great. I'm 100% on board with that.
yeah, I just found that, you know, it's kind of fun, just things I've been learning as I've gone through, you know?
Nice. All right. Well, if we're out of questions here, I'm gonna stop our meeting. I'm gonna thank you again. Thank you very much for coming today. I deeply appreciate it. I hope you've seen some things here that kind of clue you into what kind of stuff we're going to be looking for. And you know, I hope you looked at that stuff and you weren't disappointed that you would never be able to make that. You guys can do that in a heartbeat. And it's by the time you sit down in the portfolio class and you say, hey, I saw this one thing once that was like a really nice version of the menu that I did. I really liked that menu. I'd like to do that now. That's something that's totally doable. So that's it. Just don't be afraid. Reach out if you have any questions. Think about what you've seen and think about how far away it is. And I think you'll understand that while you may be signed up to take Portfolio in the spring, or I'm hoping to see y'all in Graphic Design 3 in person in the fall, it's kind of a stair-step approach where you get more skilled and the classes get tougher, but the results get better and better. All right, everybody have a great day. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, and I'll see you around. I hope this was helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. See y'all later.
Thank you. Professor, I have quick question.
Oh, sure. What's
not
up?
related to this class.
Okay, well, hold on a second, then
Okay.
I'll stop this recording here. Maybe I won't stop this recording. I'm stopping the recording.